Okay, everybody. Well, welcome. I am Jason Slimon. I am a assistant professor at the Department of Applied English, based in Taipei, and I am normally used to a longer form, more like the keynotes. So I may have had trouble editing what I'm going to talk about down to the actual time I've been allotted. We will see. I'm probably going to speed through a lot of this pretty quickly. I may be glossing over details that may help you understand better. In that case, I really will try to leave time at the end, and we can go back over things that might have been missing if we have time. We'll see. I don't know. I want to give you an idea about what I've been doing recently. And it's kind of been two different, here are two different pathways. I have a third direction I've been going into also, but I started out talking about, and using the same class I'm going to talk about today, an elective course I teach called Western Popular Culture. What I've highlighted here are from those presentations that I did earlier. But I'm taking it a little bit further today. So rather than having something more, new or revolutionary, this is evolutionary. But I do think it's kind of there are important things you can see in this and hopefully take away from it. I turn to academic writing and integrating AI use in the writing process. I did that more recently, so now I'm returning more to providing extensive feedback and grading, but I'll focus on the extensive feedback today. So the goal, once I have created a customized GPT for really actually my teaching assistant to use, to take student writing, it's journal writing, it's not formal academic essay type writing. Taking that writing, putting it into a customized GPT, and getting both feedback and grades for what I would consider, less really, serious type of writing, more, thoughts that my students have, that kind of thing that they're putting down on paper. So I believe it's appropriate to use for this kind of writing for sure. So now that I've been able to get writing that's input and then extensive feedback that's provided to students, can I then create alter the GPT that I use in order to allow what I call cyclical feedback or recursive feedback? The idea, can you take the writing and, for example, the way that the feedback is structured, it's the GPT gives both strengths and areas for improvement. The idea, can the student pick out an area for improvement that they'd like to work on, and then my TA takes that and inputs that at the beginning of their next writing, and then evaluates how they have gone ahead and implemented those suggestions from the previous feedback. And the idea, it could be carried forward and forward and forward to give students much more opportunities to work on their weaknesses, the areas for improvement. Okay? And I think we can probably all agree that this kind of longitudinal practice is more beneficial than the sort of one-off feedback that I think is often used with writing due to different things. If a human is only doing it, it's due to time constraints and the focus and energy that a teacher can bring. And I haven't actually seen much of this going on in the literature for AI use either. We'll get to a little bit of research here. So this is one of the most referenced articles on providing air feedback in second language use. So it tried to address or answer the question, how explicit should corrective feedback be for students to be able to self-edit their texts. And it used 72 ESL writers. And a finding was that less explicit feedback, so the idea is The errors were indicated, but they were not marked for type of error. And it was found to be just as effective as more explicit feedback. So the errors were marked, but also some kind of coding that would indicate the type of errors that had been made. That wasn't as interesting to me as the part I've highlighted here. Both conditions for corrective feedback were actually significantly better than no corrective feedback for students' abilities to self-edit their own texts. That may seem to be, pretty common sense, but the literature wasn't that, demonstrative about that kind of outcome. This one is a little bit more focused on, what I'm going to be talking about, investigating, students' uptake of teacher and ChatGPT generated feedback. So it's sort of a comparison, right, in EFL writing. Okay. 20 Chinese university students were learning English at university, and they wrote argumentative essays, and they received both ChatGPT and teacher feedback. This may not, again, come as much of a surprise to you. Students used teacher feedback a bit more effectively, and also voiced a preference for teacher provided feedback. But the students also, in a follow-up survey, did indicate that they recognized a superior nature of ChatGPT's feedback for organization in particular, and that actually was confirmed by an objective evaluation too, that was the case. So before I dive into the one example I'm going to use of the feedback I got for one actual student writing this semester, I'll give a little bit of a background about the class to place this so you understand what the class is about a little bit better. Western popular culture. It is 2 classroom hours a week, and students produce journal writing for weeks 1, 3, 5, 7, 13, and then a final, larger, more extensive journal writing, sort of an end of class writing in week 17. We're going to be focusing on, I'm going to be showing you feedback for both week 5 and week 7, so you can see the differences in how the student used the feedback, and then how the GPT evaluated the student's use of the feedback in the later journal writing. 32 students originally, when I taught the class 3 years ago, 2 years ago, I guess it got good word of mouth when we still had these kind of numbers. I guess 64 students 2 years ago. I didn't teach it last year, but this semester I'm teaching it again, and I'm down to 27 students who are actually still in the class, and I would imagine next year when I would teach it again, potentially, we will be lower than that number simply because of the drop in number of students we get. This is the largest grade for the class, the journal writing. It is tied with weekly group work, so both of them are 30%, so 60% overall. Where they are basically testing out ideas in different formats and hopefully extending those ideas that they write about, that they encounter in class, and then extending them and personalizing them and making connections to them, both within the class and within their own experience. So my TA uses a custom GPT that I created. The GPT has all of my PowerPoints, has all of the major class handouts, has the grading rubric, since it also, you do use it for grading as well. And it can reference those things. So it knows exactly what's going on in the class, basically. It knows. It can reference that. So, yeah, I talked a little bit about this already, but so these are kind of the key instructions that the GPT is working under, like when I created it, and you create these customized GPTs if you've never done it before. It's basically natural language coding. You're basically giving it the instructions of how to perform in English for me, right? And it's not only is it then much easier for someone who is from a non-computer science background, but it becomes easier because it's basically done through a Socratic method. Right? The GPT itself will ask you what you want it to do, and you choose. Do you want me to do that and that and that, or just one of those things? And it's very good and very quick to create these things as a sideline here. So it uses, it's aligned again with my rubric for grading, but the feedback itself also emphasizes clarity, cultural relevance, depth of analysis, and personal connections, okay, within the Western Popular Culture class. As you can see here, there's nothing about mechanics. I don't grade them on grammar and sentence structure and things like that. Though, of course, when we look at things like clarity, I tell students, you still have to be careful. And I have actually provided another customized GPT for the students themselves to use to explore Western popular culture, because I have an extremely limited and narrow, as we might all imagine, view of popular culture. It's as big as the internet, or even bigger, which is hard to get your head around. But the idea is they need more than me and my narrow view. So my GPT, well, it can do internet searches and supplement what we do in class that way. And I know from reading students' journals, spot reading. I don't read everything, because that's one of the things the GPT helps save me on, is having to do all this and saving time. But through my spot reading, I know students are pretty good about actually using the GPT I provided for them for more exploration. But I also tell students, with your journal writing, please do go ahead and ask it to correct your grammar, right? Because it can affect clarity, and that's the most important thing, is communicating your ideas to me or to the GPT and making sure it understands. So that's absolutely a fine use of it. And when they write the reflection journal writing, I always have them at least start the writing in the class. So I'll give them at least 15 minutes at the end of class to write in the weeks that we do it. And then they have to take a photo of that writing and upload that along with the completed MS Word file that they write. And they have to write at least 200 words each week, which doesn't sound like a lot, and a lot of students actually write a lot more than that. But because they upload both, my TA can go back and kind of compare and make sure students aren't actually doing a lot more of the idea generation with a GPT, rather than just the kind of mechanical correction that I do suggest they do. And I have not seen a lot of evidence of students, what I think of them as, getting the GPT to actually write the journals themselves. And I tell students, that's very difficult to do for this type of writing anyway, where I ask you to connect these things to your own personal experiences. Okay. So again, the GPT is also required to give feedback in two forms to make it organized: strengths and areas for improvement. And we'll talk about the areas of improvement more in particular in just a minute. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to jump to my MS Word files now that I've prepared. I could have logged on to ChatGPT and shown you this that way, but it's a little bit harder to manipulate the text so that it makes it readable from distance and things like that. So I've used MS Word files so that you can see that more easily. Okay. And sometimes what I asked in these presentations, especially my longer ones, is a little bit reading heavy for my participants, and I'm really going to try to limit that with you today. I don't want to overwhelm you with reading here. But a quick look at the schedule. If you can read that, pump it up a little more. This is the weekly schedule, and I've highlighted when we really start getting into the topics. It's really a scatter shot, as you can see. You can't possibly cover a lot of things, especially if you're not going to make it really theory heavy, and I don't. We go much more into topical and media, exploring media in the classroom together. So, you have gender as presented in advertising and the media. We move into, Hollywood and Marvel and superheroes, and we do talk about the heroic from, the mythology, the monomyth idea. We get into, hip hop and fashion related. issues, and we use that as a springboard in the second half of class to talk about hip-hop in a much more serious way related to racial issues, as well as hip-hop's messages, which have changed over time. And what I'm going to show you today is week 5 and week 7 journal writing. So some of the students wrote originally about hip-hop fashion, how they have influenced, say, Taiwanese university students' fashion choices, and describing those fashion choices and their own styles and things like that. And then in week 7, when we've been looking at English language using YouTubers based in Taiwan, and I have students explore and share YouTubers they choose in class with small groups that way, and then they do journal writing afterwards, sometimes about what they themselves shared, sometimes what they experienced from other classmates when we do that sharing there. Okay, so let's take a look quickly at the feedback that I've got here, and we're not going to read it all. I'm not going to torture you that way, but I've highlighted a few things. So the parts in yellow are the parts that my TA inputs before she puts in the actual written text from the students. And the parts that have not been highlighted are all the student writing that have been they wrote up. After they did the in-class beginning in handwriting, they've uploaded the MS Word version, the completed version later. So we get to see, my TA has input this for the previous journal writing, you gave her this advice, stronger organization. Okay, so from week 5 moving to week 6, this was seen, the student chose it, right? So this is student agency. I try not to remove student agency from the process as much as possible. So they're choosing what they want to work on, what they want to focus on for the next journal writing. So then we asked the GPT, please compare the writer's previous journal writing to the new journal writing below and evaluate both the new writing and how successful she was at improving her writing using the advice. Okay, we're not going to read that. It's not really necessary for our purposes today. But as you can see, thanks for sharing the updated reflection. As you may already know, of course, highly supportive and positive in the way it gives feedback, much more so than most teachers, I think, probably, which is a good thing overall. But you can see also how it's organized here then, the strengths. So already, boom, we have much improved organization, right? This is a big improvement, and then it points out how, in what areas of the writing, the organization has improved, right? So it's not just saying it has improved, it's showing the places and the way and how it is recognized that. Okay. And then we have personal voice and clear opinions, connection to popular culture, improved grammar and sentence flow. Okay, so it's given positive, those are the strengths, right? And then we have still areas for improvement here, minor grammar fixes, okay, and giving those examples and then suggestions about how to fix those. More specific class connection needed, more depth about cultural meaning. And I think we'll see here, for the next journal writing, the student chose more specific class connection. We'll see if I remember that right. I've run several of these before I chose one, so I hope I'm not confusing the ones that I'm commenting on here. Okay, thank you. So then it gives finally a comparison, an overall comparison with the previous journal writing. It's sort of a summary of what it just went through, right? So, check mark, check mark, check mark, and then a circle. Still needs stronger use of class content. So we'll see that below when my TA re-enters for the next journal writing. That, of course, you'll see that again as being what's chosen for the student to work on in her next journal entry. Okay, and then we get a grade. And I don't think that's, I think that's probably about right, because I've actually went back and I read in detail that writing, and that's probably about what I would have given as well. Okay. All right, and then it always ends with, because I offer for my TA, in case there's something that she wants to read and it's difficult to read, immediately offering Mandarin Chinese as well. And I do that in my GPT that I provide for students to explore topics themselves in the classes as well. Okay, so this is the new entry. This is for week 7 then. The one we just looked at was week 5. This is week 7's journal writing. Again, you see the parts that my TA includes there to instruct the GPT in yellow, and then more specific connection to class. What happened in the class is needed. And then we have the student's actual journal writing there. And this is about YouTubers, okay? And again, supportive at the beginning. And the parts that I've highlighted here now, we'll look at together in more detail. Excellent use of class content. Okay, that's a strength. This time you did exactly what was asked. Okay? All right, so it's very clear. And then it walks through what the student did this time that was better than the journal, what they did in the journal writing the previous time. And again, other areas of strength, okay? And areas for improvement again. Student always has some minor grammatical errors or adjustments that are needed, comments on that. And stronger linking between paragraphs. So to me, this is actually really makes me feel good about what the student and how the student is using this. Because this stuff, like I said, use a GPT, use AI to help you with that. That's fine, that's great, that's easy to clean up. Where a lot of students have had struggled and had problems with, though, is idea generation and clarity of expression of their ideas, actually. So that isn't being commented on now at this point as a weakness. Okay. And then we see, again, a table that lays it out. I didn't even code the GPT to do this, but it just does this. A table about, comparing previous journal writing to the new journal writing, and all of these different areas that I have said are important for evaluation. And ta-da! Better grade. Okay, so it all fits together nicely here. But through, I've run more than one journal writing through this as I prepared for today, and it all follows a pretty good and accurate and well done job, I would say. And one of the biggest things, of course, is it saves monumental amounts of time that I can then spend developing new material, choosing videos to show, changing from one type of material I use one semester to the next time I teach the class, going more in depth in an area that students seem to enjoy the previous class, and doing more of that, or the opposite, doing less of something they didn't enjoy so much the next time I teach the class. All of that is freed up, because if I try to evaluate even 27 every 2 weeks at this level of depth, I've explained this to students, because students often do really want teacher feedback more, but I tell students, if we didn't use the GPT to do this, there would be no writing component to this class. I just come right out and tell them, I'm sorry, I just wouldn't have the time to do it. I couldn't invest that time compared to the other 4 classes that I also have to teach. And so, could I give better feedback than this? I think I could. If I took 30 or 40 minutes per journal writing, as opposed to 20 seconds that ChatGPT can do. So, I don't know. To me, it's kind of a no-brainer. My TA does offer extra comments and extra things at the end, often, depending. She reads what is necessary to read. She reads the feedback. She can adjust the feedback too. And she talks to me about anything that is questionable or whatever that ChatGPT produces. And occasionally that does happen, where it seems like an unreasonably low or high grade, depending on the writing. And we can adjust for that. And I always tell my students, if you are not satisfied, particularly with the grade that you get from the GPT, I will regrade it. The last time I taught it, 2 years ago, I had one student asked me to do that for all of her writing, and I did that. And the grades that I gave were within 5 points of what the GPT gave anyway. Nobody has asked me to do that this semester. Does that mean that GPT has, AI has improved since then? I don't know. But in any case, no student has asked for that so far. So I'm just about done here, and hopefully we'll have a little bit of time at the end. So I'm going to just try to spur a few things here. How do you think this type of recursive feedback could be integrated into other classes, writing or otherwise? This is a topic-heavy, cultural-heavy class, and it fits better. But does that mean it doesn't fit for other things necessarily? I don't know. I would love to hear your feedback about that. What challenges do you foresee with implementing this type of feedback, or what are the pros and cons? If you're a teacher, can you think of a use for this type of custom GPT-provided feedback in one of your classes? And if you're not a teacher, well, what are you doing here? No, I'm joking. What do you think about this, this type of exploration? Okay, and maybe that should get us started. And that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Yes. It's a very good and interesting topic. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to use your example actually with my talk later on. I'm interested in two things. First, do you develop the customized GPT by yourself, or you use already the existing one, the one which is on the left panel in GPT? Yeah. The second one is very quick, or all very quick. How do you formulate the grade system for the GPT to score?
Yeah, I may not have brought the actual rubric that I use today. I've talked about that in previous presentations. But okay. So let me cover the first one first. I just created the GPT myself. After creating, if you've ever done this before, after you create the first one, after that it becomes really fast and simple. But a really cool thing that I started experimenting with recently is you can actually clone your own GPT. So I cloned this one for another experiment I'm doing, something I almost presented on today. I actually created 2 presentations for today. Wow. And last night I changed and did and rewrote it and did this one instead. But also actually creating a GPT that inputs an error into the feedback it gives in order for students to practice finding an error, because we do know that AI hallucinates and things. So can it do that in the way I want it to? And I wasn't quite satisfied in my experimentation yet with its ability to input the type of error I wanted students to be able to practice finding. But it's all based on the material which the GPT already has. So it's very relevant to the students, and they should already have covered that knowledge anyway, and so they should have a better chance of picking that out. So I cloned it, and then I only had to change a few lines of the instructions in order to get it to behave the new way I wanted. Yeah. What was your second question?
Grading.
Oh, grading. Yeah, I have a rubric. It actually starts from 50 points to 100 points. Because I don't want to be too harsh, but it's basically based on length, and then those other 4 areas that I talked about: clarity, cultural relevance, personal connection, that kind of thing.
We've got 1 minute left, and there was a question over here.
All right.
Sorry, here.
So if you're interested, I'd be happy to share the rubric and everything else later.
Okay, and there you go. Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, round table. Save it for the round table.
Okay, and CJ.